The first sound she heard was screaming. The second was steel cutting flesh. That was the night childhood ended. And war found its youngest daughter. Her name was Alara. She was 8 years old when the war decided to notice her. Before that, Alara's world was small, painfully small, but safe. A wooden house clung to the edge of a northern valley, surrounded by pine trees that whispered when the wind passed through them. In winter, snow buried the land in silence. In summer, wildflowers pushed through the soil as if hope itself refused to die. Alara believed the world was gentle. She believed this because her mother sang while grinding grain, because her father smiled even when his hands bled from work, and because every night, no matter how tired they were, they sat together near the fire. Her father used to say, "Wars happen far away, little star. They don't reach places like this." Alara trusted him. Children always do. She spent her days collecting feathers near the river, pretending they were wings. She would tie them to her arms with string and run down the hill, laughing as if she could almost fly. Sometimes she asked her mother about the stories the elders whispered, about warriors in shining armor, about women who rode through the sky and chose who lived and who died. Valkyries, her mother said softly once. Legends, she added quickly, like the word itself was dangerous. But Alara liked the sound of it. Valkyrie. It sounded strong. It sounded fearless. It sounded like someone who never cried. At night, when the fire dimmed and shadows danced on the walls, Alara dreamed of wings made of light and armor forged from stars. In those dreams, no one could hurt her family. No one could touch her world. But dreams are fragile things. And war has a way of waking you up. The first sign was the silence. No birds that morning. No wind in the trees. Even the fire crackled less, like it was afraid to make noise. Alara's father stood at the door longer than usual, staring toward the distant hills. His jaw was tight. His hand rested on the old axe by the wall, a tool, not a weapon. It had never been a weapon. "Stay inside today," he said finally. Alara frowned. "Why?" He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just stay close to your mother." That was when fear entered the house. Not loud, not screaming. Just a quiet, heavy thing that sat in the corner and watched them. By midday, the ground began to tremble. At first, Alara thought it was thunder. But the sky was clear, blue, mockingly peaceful. Then came the sound. Horses. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Metal clashed. Voices shouted harsh, unfamiliar words carried by the wind. Her mother grabbed her hand. Hard. Too hard. Under the floor, she whispered. The floorboards lifted, revealing a narrow space meant for grain and tools. Alara had hidden there during games, laughing. Now it smelled of dust and fear. Her father knelt in front of her. His face was pale, but his eyes burned. "No matter what you hear," he said, voice shaking, "you do not come out. Do you understand?" Alara nodded, though her throat felt too tight to speak. The boards closed above her. Darkness swallowed her whole. The door broke first. Not opened. Broken. Wood splintered. Heavy boots thundered inside the house. Alara pressed her hands over her mouth to stop herself from screaming. She heard her father shout. Then a sickening thud. Then her mother's voice, sharp, desperate, begging. A sound followed that Alara would never forget. Steel slicing through air. A body hitting the ground. Her mother screamed Alara's name. Once. Just once. Then silence. No, not silence. Laughter. Rough, cruel laughter that echoed through the house like poison. Tears streamed down Alara's face, but she made no sound. Her nails dug into her skin until pain was the only thing keeping her real. She didn't know how long she stayed there. Minutes. Hours. A lifetime. Finally, the floorboards above creaked again. Light flooded in. A man stood over her. Tall. Armored. Blood splattered across his chest like paint. He looked down at her with mild curiosity. Not hatred. Not anger. Indifference. "Another one," he muttered. He raised his sword. This was it. This was how stories ended. But then, an explosion of noise outside. Shouting. horns blaring. The man cursed and turned away. Alara stayed frozen, staring at the open space above her. When she finally crawled out, the house was no longer a home. It was a grave. Her father lay near the door, eyes open, staring at nothing. Her mother was beside the table, one hand stretched forward, reaching for someone who wasn't there. Alara screamed. Not like a child. Like something broken. The village burned for 3 days. Alara wandered through smoke and ash, stepping over bodies she recognized by their clothes, by their hair, by the memories attached to them. No one stopped her. No one helped her. War didn't care that she was 8 years old. By the 4th day, hunger forced her toward the forest. She drank from streams and ate berries she wasn't sure were safe. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow looked like a soldier. At night, she dreamed of her mother screaming her name. She woke up biting her own arm to stay quiet. Days turned into weeks. She should have died. But she didn't. Something inside her refused. One night, as Alara collapsed near a frozen river, too weak to stand, she saw figures through the mist. Women. Armored. Silent. They stood on the ice without breaking it. One stepped forward. Her eyes glowed like cold fire. "Why do you still breathe, child of war?" the woman asked. Alara swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. "Because I didn't die." The woman studied her, the dirt, the blood, the hollow eyes of a child who had seen too much. "No," she said softly. "You didn't." The others turned away, fading into the fog like shadows at dawn. But the first woman lingered. "Live," she said. "And remember." When Alara woke up, she was alone. But something had changed. The pain was still there. The fear was still there. But beneath it was fire. Pain didn't teach her how to fight. It taught her how to endure. And endurance is where warriors are born. Alara did not become strong overnight. Strength came slowly, cruelly, like winter. After the night by the frozen river, she kept moving north. She didn't know why. Her feet just carried her there, step after step, through lands that felt empty of warmth and mercy. Villages existed, broken ones, burned ones, graves disguised as homes. She learned quickly what the world had become. If you cried, you were ignored. If you begged, you were mocked. If you trusted, you died. So Alara stopped doing all three. At night, she spoke to no one, not even herself. She replayed memories instead, over and over, like wounds she refused to let heal. Her father's voice. Her mother's song. The laughter that had followed their deaths. That laughter was the worst. It lived inside her now. Sometimes she wondered why she hadn't died with them. Other times, she was glad she hadn't. That scared her. One evening, weak and shaking from fever, Alara collapsed near the ruins of an old stone hall half buried in snow. Smoke curled from a hole in the roof. Someone was inside. She should have run. Instead, she crawled. The woman did not look like a hero. No shining armor. No glowing sword. Just scars. Her hair was silver, not from age, but from something harsher. Her armor was worn, repaired too many times to count. A spear rested against the wall, close enough to grab in a heartbeat. She studied Alara like a hunter studies a wounded animal. "You followed the wrong smoke, child," the woman said calmly. Alara tried to speak. Failed. The woman sighed and tossed her a cup of warm broth. "Drink," she ordered. "Then decide if you want to live." That night, Alara learned the woman's name. Brynhild. She did not call herself a Valkyrie. She called herself what remained of one. Brynhild did not comfort her. She did not ask about Alara's family. She did not say, "I'm sorry." Instead, she said, "Survivors don't need pity. They need purpose." The training began the next morning. Not with weapons. With cold. Alara was sent into the snow barefoot and told to stand still until she stopped shaking. When she collapsed, Brynhild dragged her back inside. "Again," she said. Day after day, Alara was pushed past what she thought were her limits, and then pushed further. Hunger was controlled. Sleep was short. Pain was constant. Her body bruised. Her hands bled. Her lungs burned. But the worst part wasn't physical. It was memory. Brynhild forced her to speak. Tell me their names. Alara screamed instead. Brynhild waited. Eventually, the names came broken, choking sounds torn from her chest. Each name was a knife. Each repetition made the pain sharper. Good, Brynhild said quietly. Now you will never forget why you fight. Weeks turned into months. Alara learned to track silently, to move without sound, to fall without breaking, to endure wounds without crying out. She learned to fight with sticks before blades, to block before striking, to survive before killing. But every night, when the fire died down, she shook. Not from cold, from fear of what she was becoming. The test came without warning. They were traveling through a mountain pass when they found a boy no older than Alara had been stealing food from a fallen cart. He froze when he saw them. Brynhild raised her spear. Alara stepped forward instinctively. He's just hungry, she said. Brynhild's eyes were cold. So were the men who killed your family. The boy ran. Brynhild threw the spear. It missed, deliberately, but close enough to make the message clear. The boy vanished into the rocks. Alara stared at Brynhild, horror flooding her face. You would have killed him, Alara whispered. Yes, Brynhild replied. And one day, so will you. That night, Alara didn't sleep. She realized something terrifying. Survival demanded choices. And not all of them were clean. Winter deepened. So did Alara. Her movements grew precise. Her eyes sharper. Her silence heavier. One evening, Brynhild placed a sword in her hands for the first time. It was too heavy. Good. Names matter, Brynhild said. This one has none. You will earn it. Alara trained until her arms screamed and her vision blurred. She fell. She rose. She fell again. Something inside her hardened. Not into cruelty. Into resolve. She stopped asking why. She started asking how on the highest ridge, under a sky torn apart by northern lights, Brynhild finally spoke the words Alara had waited for. There are others like me, she said. Women who were never meant to survive, but did. Alara looked up. What are they? Brynhild met her gaze. Valkyries, she said. Not legends. Not angels. Survivors. The wind howled like a war cry. Alara tightened her grip on the sword. She was no longer a child running with feathers on her arms. She was something unfinished. And unfinished things are dangerous. The men who burned her village never remembered her face. That was their final mistake. Years passed. Not gently. Not kindly. Alara grew, not just in height, but in presence. People felt it before they saw her. A quiet weight in the air. A stillness that warned of violence restrained, not absent. Her hair was tied back now. Her armor simple. Functional. Scarred. The sword finally had a name. Skjaldbringer, shield breaker. She had earned it. Brynhild stood beside her on a cliff overlooking a valley where smoke rose once again. Another town. Another march of soldiers. Another war pretending it was necessary. They are moving south, Brynhild said. The same banners. Alara didn't ask which ones. She already knew. She had seen them in her dreams for years. The red-marked shields. The black iron helms. The laughter. Her hands tightened. This is where you decide, Brynhild continued. Valkyries do not fight for revenge. They fight for balance. Alara looked down at the valley. What balance was there when my mother begged? She asked quietly. Brynhild had no answer. Only truth. They moved at night. Silent. Precise. Not as an army, but as shadows. Alara led the way. Her first kill came without drama. A guard. Half asleep. Breath taken before he could scream. She felt nothing. That scared her more than guilt ever had. Inside the camp, chaos bloomed exactly as Brynhild had taught her to create it. Fires started. Horses panicked. Orders collapsed into screams. War eating itself. Then Alara saw him. The commander. Older now. Heavier. Still wearing the same symbol burned into her memory. Her world narrowed. Every lesson vanished. She stepped into the firelight. The commander turned. Their eyes met. Recognition flickered, not of her, but of fear. You, he muttered. You're one of them. Alara said nothing. She attacked. Steel rang. Sparks flew. The fight was brutal, uneven, desperate. He was strong. Experienced. She was relentless. He struck her shoulder. Pain exploded. She didn't slow. She disarmed him and knocked him to the ground. Her blade hovered at his throat. He laughed, weak, bloody. "Do it," he said. "That's what you are." Alara trembled. For a moment, she saw herself through his eyes. A monster born of war. And she remembered Brynhild's words. Choice. She lowered the blade. "You don't get to decide who I am," she said. Then she ended him. Not in anger. In resolve. The camp burned. The villagers escaped. But war never leaves without payment. An arrow flew from the smoke. Alara turned too late. It struck Brynhild. Time stopped. Alara caught her as she fell, blood soaking the snow beneath them. "You did well," Brynhild whispered, breath shallow. "Better than me." "Don't," Alara said, voice breaking. "Please." Brynhild smiled faintly. "You chose," she said. "That's what makes you Valkyrie." Her eyes closed. The fire crackled. The night swallowed the sound of Alara's scream. At dawn, Alara stood alone on the ridge. Below her, survivors fled toward safety. Behind her, ashes cooled. She buried Brynhild herself. Marked the grave with stone. No tears fell. Not because she felt nothing, but because she felt everything. Later, on the frozen river where her journey had begun, Alara knelt and placed her sword on the ice. She spoke, not to gods, not to legends. To herself. "I will not be war's child forever." The wind rose. The sky darkened. And for a moment, just a moment, wings of light seemed to stretch behind her shadow. Not real. But real enough, stories spread after that. Of a woman who appeared before battles and vanished after. Of villages spared when armies fell. Of a warrior who fought not for kings, but for the innocent caught between them. They called her many things. Ghost. Shield. Judgment. But the old name returned too. Valkyrie. Not the one who chose the dead, but the one who refused to let the living be forgotten. Alara was not born a warrior. She was not chosen by fate. She was broken by war. And rebuilt by choice. And that is the truth history rarely tells. Even in a world made of violence, you can decide what you become.